Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of the Hip Drop Podcast. This is a recap episode, and if you might notice, Owen Smith is not here. He has prior commitments, and I'm going to write solo. My name is Lucas. I write for Arrowhead Addict, and it's a holiday episode. Tomorrow is Christmas. Today is Christmas Eve, and I thought I would spice it up with a Christmas-themed shirt and some antlers. So we're only going to be recapping the games from this past week, week 16, and let's just dive right into it. So first game of the week was arguably the best game of the year. Rams Seahawks game. This game really looked like it was the Rams to lose. They were up 30-14 in the fourth quarter, and they just collapsed. Like they started with a Rashid Shaheed punt return, and Cooper Kupp converted the 2-point conversion against his former team to cut it to 8. And then just a couple minutes later, because the Rams offense stalled, AJ Barner scored a 26-yard touchdown, and then perhaps the weirdest 2-point conversion in NFL history, in which Sam Darnold technically passed the ball backwards, and then it bounced into the end zone, and Zach Charbonnet happened to pick it up, even though everyone thought it was a forward pass, and the play was over, but it was not over. The NFL reviewed it, and then they tied the game. And then in overtime, Seattle got the ball. He almost immediately scored. Puka Nacua had a great game today, on Thursday, 2 touchdowns. Unbelievable performance. He saved me in fantasy. He won me a fantasy championship, so thank you, Puka. But then Seattle went right down the field. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a very slow start to the game, but then he really caught on strong finished with 96 yards, 8 catches, and a touchdown. And that touchdown was the most important one of the game. And then they ended up converting the 2-point conversion to Eric Sauber to win the game. This was an impactful game. Seattle now was in control for the 1 seed. If they could win, I believe, their final 2 games, they are the 1 seed for sure. They might just need to beat Seattle, or not beat San Francisco in Week 18, but nonetheless, Seattle controls their own destiny. The Rams, I still think they're the best team in football, but this is a pretty tough loss. They're probably going to have to be the 5 seed now, which is going to make it a much tougher path to the Super Bowl. But if there's any team in the NFL that can do it this year, it's the team with the best coach, in my opinion, right now, and the MVP, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. Moving on to the first Saturday game, we had 2 Saturday games this week. Eagles and Commanders. Not much to say. The Eagles were pretty much in control the entire time. Marcus Mariota got hurt. Josh Johnson, who's somehow still in the NFL, came in relief. Eagles start for Washington this week. Philadelphia, good bounce-back win. Wasn't really totally impressed with the Eagles, if I'm being honest. I think this is a good win because they won by double digits against a much inferior team. Jalen Hurts, not very impressive. Marcus Mariota was all right when he was playing, but only threw 14 balls. Josh Johnson came in, was awful. The Eagles, they're now NFC East champions, the first repeat NFC East winner in almost 20 years, since I think the Eagles did it themselves with Andy Reid. So good on Philadelphia. Next game is the other Saturday game, which was probably the second best game of the season, or at least the second most exciting, in which the Green Bay Packers traveled down to Soldier Field in Chicago to take on the Bears. And I just don't know how to describe this game. This ending of the game was absolutely insane. It looked like the Packers had this game completely on lock until they didn't. The Bears scored a touchdown with a few minutes left. With about they didn't score a touchdown. Excuse me. So Green Bay made it 16-6 with 5 minutes left in the game. Cairo Santos converted a field goal to make it 16-9, which was very poorly handled in my opinion. It seems like the Bears or Cairo Santos took an extra 15 seconds, which I'm not going to go through the entire structure, but it cost the Bears a significant amount of time, almost 40 seconds, given they lost a free timeout because they just dawdled on the kick. But it didn't matter because they immediately got the onside kick, which I think that's the 8th onside conversion this year. So pretty high success rate so far, but good on Chicago. And then Jahdae Walker, of all people, scored on a 4th down on a very weird play where Caleb Williams just threw the ball a million feet in the air, but then Jahdae Walker came down with it to tie the game. They decided to go for the extra point instead of the 2-point conversion. I probably would have gone for the 2 just because Chicago had all the momentum and don't take your chance in overtime. But what did the Bears do? They took their chance in overtime, and it paid off. Caleb Williams made perhaps the greatest throw of the season. PFF said it was the only +2 throw they've graded this season. So good on Caleb Williams. He didn't play very well start to finish in this game, but he played very well when he needed to, so full credit to him. Next game. Now we're on to Sunday. Browns-Bills in Cleveland. This game was very interesting because it looked like there was a chance Cleveland was going to hang around and win this game, but Shedeur Sanders could not come up clutch, took a couple of bad sacks, ended up being 4th and 32 on their own 1. Even though there was under 2 minutes left and they were losing, they had to punt because you might as well try and get a fumble on the punt return or botching a snap rather than relying on a rookie to convert a 4th and 32. But nonetheless, Buffalo wins. They're still hanging around the AFC East race, but it's still unlikely they win, but they're still hanging around. They're back in the playoffs. They'll end up being probably a 5 seed unless New England chokes down the stretch. But Cleveland, not much else to say. Not impressed by Shedeur Sanders. Cincinnati and Miami, not much to say in this game. Like, Joe Burrow was fantastic in a garbage time game, which meant nothing. 25 of 32, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Quinn Ewers was 20 of 30, 260, 2 picks. Not really much to say. Not really much to say. So Miami, it looks like the Tua Tagovailoa era is over. I don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to be back. He had a hot November, but doesn't appear that he's going to finish I don't really know if he's going to come back next year, but nonetheless, that's a topic for a future week. Next up is the most tragic game of the week, in my opinion, because I'm a Chiefs fan. Tennessee Titans win their 3rd game of the year, 26-9 over the Kansas City Chiefs. This game was just a tire fire. This may have been the worst game in the Andy Reid era. It was the lowest graded PFF game for the team grade, not just by quarterback or any position, the lowest overall team grade for an individual game since 2008. This game was a tire fire. The Chiefs tried to win this game. They played everyone. They didn't play any young guys like Jalen Royals or Jeffrey Bassa, or Noah Williams didn't even see that many snaps, relatively speaking. They went out there and they tried, and nothing happened. Like, nothing. The Chiefs did nothing on offense the entire game. They had 1 drive, could not score. They kicked 3 field goals. Gardner Minshew got hurt early in the game. It was feared that he may have torn his ACL. We've learned that is not true, but he was awful in this game. 3 of 8, 15 yards, tire fire. Chris Olodukan came into the game and was actually decent to start. Not amazing, but decent. Came in, made a great play to Isaiah Pacheco, but kind of fell off a cliff after that. The Chiefs are cooked. They're gonna get hammered on Christmas night. They're gonna ruin every Chiefs fan's Christmas, even after the stadium announcement. Tennessee, Cam Ward, best game of the season, 89.9 PFF grade. He torched a Chiefs defense we thought was good. They were playing everyone, and they were apparently taking it seriously. And got to give him credit. That was the best game of his career. He's starting to show hope, so hopefully he can carry that momentum to next year. Carolina at home against Tampa Bay. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one. This was one of the biggest wins in Carolina Panthers history. I know they beat the Rams a few weeks ago at home, but this game was more impactful. This is a game they had to win if they wanted to win the NFC South, and they did. Although the division race is not over technically, I believe if the Bucs win in Week 18, assuming the Bucs also win this upcoming week, then the Bucs are going to be NFC South champs. So the Panthers still have to hope for a Buccaneers loss this week, or they have to beat them again in Week 18 in Tampa. But fantastic. Bryce Young was amazing in this game, 21 to 32, 191 yards. That doesn't tell the full story. He had an average depth of target of 9 with an adjusting completion percentage of 76, 4 big-time throws. It seems like anytime he threw the ball down the field, it was money. Good on him. And Baker Mayfield, seems like he's missing Liam Cohen. He played all right in this game, but just it seems like he wanted more from this Buccaneers offense. It just seems like this team's falling apart. So, yep, sorry about that. My computer was being a little buggy. Seems like this Bucs team's falling apart. Todd Bowles, I think, is cooked. Even if they make the playoffs, they have no chance. The Buccaneers were my pick to be the number 1 seed. I've since come to regret that decision. Hopefully, Carolina can win the NFC South and create an intriguing wildcard matchup. So, good on Carolina. Not good for Tampa Bay. Jets Saints, like one of the more like underrated like games of the week. Like not for pure entertainment, but just because of an underrated storyline. Tyler Shuck was 32 of 49 for 308 yards. I don't think he played as well as the stat sheet indicated. He had a lot of bad misses down the field in this game. Even though he threw for 300 yards, he easily probably left another 60 on the field. But I think the bigger picture with him is I think Tyler Shuck is going to be the starting quarterback for the Saints next year. He's been underrated, hasn't been amazing because his supporting cast isn't like top tier. But Kellen Moore's a good coach. Tyler Shuck is playing great. He's proven that he was worthy of a top 50 pick. I don't think he'll ever be a superstar, but he's playing well. And the Jets, they're just tanking. They have the worst roster in the NFL. Brady Cook is not even a backup caliber quarterback. He's probably been the worst quarterback in the NFL to throw at least like 90 passes this year. So not good on him. Next up, Chargers, Cowboys. I'm impressed with the Chargers. Like, I just don't get it. Their offensive line is beat up. They're just not that talented on defense, but they've been quietly effective. Justin Herbert was incredible in this game. When he was kept clean and not under pressure, which he was under pressure about on 42% of his dropbacks, that's very high. But when he was kept clean, 16-19, 218 yards, 3 big-time throws. He was pretty much perfect. And one of those passes was dropped, and another one was a throwaway. So he honestly went 17 of 18 when kept clean. If the Chargers can protect him in the playoffs, this team could be a little bit frisky. Don't see him as a Super Bowl team, but they could scare somebody in the wild card round. They could be a very, very nerve-wracking wild card team that comes in on the road and faces a division winner. I would not want to be that team. Dallas, Dak Prescott was all right in this game, but they were trailing for a lot of it. It seemed like Brian Schottenheimer was creating a lot of positive momentum. That's now gone. I still think he's going to be a quality coach, but Dallas' season is cooked. Not much else to say. Vikings, Giants. I mean, I don't really care about this game that much, even though I'm a Minnesota boy. JJ McCarthy was awful in this game. He threw a pick. He had 3 turnover-worthy plays. Didn't 9 of 14 for 108 yards. Not really impressed. Jackson Dart was also pretty bad. He was 7 of 13. Both starting quarterbacks didn't really throw a lot. Like the Giants only threw 13 passes today, or in this game, which is pretty odd. But the Vikings win. Was not a very entertaining game, but the Giants are now one step closer to the first overall pick. So I guess they're the real winners. Falcons and the Cardinals. Not much to say here. I guess Raheem Morris is trying to save his job because they've been playing pretty well the past couple of weeks, the Atlanta Falcons have. Kirk Cousins played pretty well in this game. He was accurate. Didn't really push the ball down the field a ton, but didn't really need to against the Cardinals team that's absolutely losing momentum. Jacoby Brissett, not exactly impressive. Not much to really say. Like, these are two teams who are out of the playoffs, two Redbird teams that are probably not going to be relevant for the next few years unless they can get their quarterback situation figured out or ironed or just improved. Okay, next game, arguably the surprising result of the weekend. Jacksonville Jaguars go into Denver and they dominate. Like they won 34-20, but there was kind of a touchdown late in the game that cut it a little bit closer than it actually was. Trevor Lawrence has quietly been cooking the past few weeks. Like it seems like this Jacksonville team has figured it out, because even though this team, the Jaguars, had a good record, Trevor Lawrence really wasn't playing well the first 3 months of the year. But over the past 4 weeks, he's been amazing. Like the past 4 games, over this current win streak, but over the last 4 games specifically, not the entire win streak, Trevor Lawrence has 12 touchdowns, 0 picks. But even more impressive, he has, let me count, 11 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. And he's been arguably the best quarterback in football over the past 4 weeks. We knew coming out he was one of the most talented quarterbacks to come out of the NFL in years, and he's finally starting to consistently show that potential. So good on them. Bo Nix, not impressive in this game. He threw for 352 yards, but they were trailing for a lot of it. He had a PFF grade in the 50s, 2 turnover-worthy plays, a pick and a fumble. Not impressed. I don't buy Denver at all. I don't think they're a Super Bowl caliber team. They might fall backwards into the 1 seed, but I'm not buying them as a team that can actually be in Santa Clara in a couple months. When the last time they played, they actually made the Super Bowl was in Santa Clara. So hopefully for Broncos fans, they can repeat that. But as a Chiefs fan, I wish them nothing but the worst. Steelers-Lions. This was a very, very wild game. Like, this is a great slate of games this week. This game was, in most weeks, would have been the most entertaining game of the weekend, but it was not. The Steelers got off to a surprisingly hot start. I thought the Lions were going to hammer them this game. Detroit needed this win, but after Detroit went up 10-3 late in the first half, the Steelers just got hot. Like, Kenneth Gainwell scored an amazing touchdown with 2 seconds left in the game on a 45-yard pass from Aaron Rodgers. Then Jared Goff took a dumb safety, and then the Steelers just kept getting explosive plays. Jaylen Warren had 2 separate 45-yard touchdowns. And now I'm noticing the Steelers scored 3 touchdowns of exactly 45 yards in this game. They got explosiveness that this team has lacked. Like, the Steelers were one of the least explosive offenses in the NFL, and they got everything in that game. And as it seemed like Detroit was gonna tie the game or take the lead, the Steelers defense held strong because Detroit was marching down the field. It seemed like, it's going to come down to the final play. What happened was Detroit scored a touchdown, but it was a clear offensive pass interference on Isaac Tesla that took a 1st and goal at the 1 that was a touchdown into a 1st and goal at the 11. Then one of the Detroit Lions offensive linemen, I believe, took a false start penalty. So that moved it to 1st and goal at the Pittsburgh Steelers 16-yard line with 22 seconds left. And the Lions only had 1 timeout left. So what they did was they called a quick pass to Jahmyr Gibbs, got about half the yardage. final timeout. Jared Goff threw a couple incomplete passes. Then the most bizarre play maybe you'll ever see, maybe not ever see, it's a little bit hyperbolic. There was a pass play to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was very short of the end zone, and then he decided to lateral it to Jared Goff because why not? The game was over if he got tackled in bounds. Jared Goff takes the ball and he scores. The problem is the refs took like 30 years to come up with their ruling because there was a flag thrown before Goff got in the end zone. And so no one knew what was going to happen. Were they going to rule forward progress? And the game was over because Amon-Ra St. Brown was basically couldn't go forward anymore. And so that would make him down by contact by rule. Or are they going to pick up the flag and the Jared Goff touchdown stands? They ended up ruling it a touchdown, but then they also called offensive pass interference on Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you look at the replay, pretty obvious call. He just ran straight into a Pittsburgh defender. Pretty open and shut case. That's about as clear of an OPI as you're going to get. More than 1 yard down the field. Initiated contact and pushed him out of the way. That's a penalty. Good on Pittsburgh, man. Like, I thought the Steelers were cooked. I thought this was going to be the year Mike Tomlin was going to get fired or leave. I think he's going to stick around next year. And the Lions, they're in danger of missing the playoffs. They have to win these final two games on the road against the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas and Chicago. Because if they lose one of them, they're done. Even if they win both, the odds are against them. But let's hope, if you're a Lions fan, that they can come through. But good on Pittsburgh. They're probably going to win the AFC North, barring collapse. They should beat the Browns this weekend. The Browns are going to look checked out. So if they beat the Browns this weekend, they win the AFC North. But even if they lose to Cleveland, they'll have a Week 18 showdown at home against Baltimore to win the division. But I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to play again this season. But we'll talk about them shortly. Texans-Raiders, I thought this game was going to be a blowout, and it was not. The Raiders were surprisingly competitive, but nonetheless, the Houston Texans won the football game. Not a great game if you're a Texans fan. This offense did not play very well. The Raiders' defense was cooked. They only scored 23 points. Nico Collins scored a touchdown. Let me pull up the thing. And they scored 23 points. Yeah, I was trying to pull that up. But one of those touchdowns was off a pick six early in the game. So the offense scored 16 points against a defense that really isn't that good. And granted, the Texans were in control of this game the entire time for the most part, or in the second half. But the Raiders had the lead in the third quarter. But after Houston took the lead, they took control. Ashton Genty scored another long touchdown pass to make it somewhat respectable, but Raiders could not come up with the clutch gene, and Houston wins. At this point, if you're Houston, you don't care about how you look. You just care about winning. And they're one step closer to making the playoffs. I believe they have an opportunity to clinch this upcoming week. It was an ugly win. You want to beat the 2-12 Raiders by more than 2 points at home. But they won. That's all you really care about. But I still don't buy Houston as a Super Bowl team, but that defense is pretty good. Okay, let's move on to the primetime games. This is another banger of a game. Patriots-Ravens. It looked like Baltimore was going to win this game. They came out hot. They realized it's now or never for this team, and they came out red hot. The problem is Lamar Jackson got hurt. And once Lamar got hurt, this team really fell apart. And even though they kind of held strong for a little bit, they didn't completely fall apart. But the way that John Harbaugh managed this game in the fourth quarter is a travesty. New England was up 13-10 in the third quarter. Zay Flowers scored an 18-yard touchdown to give Baltimore the lead. Then Derrick Henry scored another touchdown to make it 24-13 with 13 minutes left to go in the game. So it seems like Baltimore's going to win this football game. Nope. Patriots go down the field, score a touchdown 4 minutes later. And then Derrick Henry never touched the ball again. So the Patriots cut it from a 24-13 to a 24-21 game. Derrick Henry barely sees the ball. I think he only got 2 carries after going up 24-13. That's a travesty. And then Ramondre Stevenson scored the game-winning touchdown with little over 2 minutes left. Even though on that same drive, perhaps the worst defensive pass interference call since that infamous Rams-Saints one in 2018-19 playoffs in an NFC Championship game. I forgot who the wide receiver was. I think it was Keyshawn Boot, was just tackled by Marlon Humphrey, I think. No call. It was just a travesty, but the Patriots scored on that drive, so no one really lost it, I think, at the end of the day. Patriots win. They're 12-3, 7-0 on the road, which is very bizarre for a young team, but good for them. And then Baltimore, they're 7-8. Unless they win each of their final 2 games and Pittsburgh loses to Cleveland, this team's cooked. I think John Harbaugh's coach's last is probably done in Baltimore after this year. Maybe Steve Bisciotti just loves Harbaugh so much that he gives him another year, but man, it just looks like this team needs a reset. So we'll see if that happens. Final game of the weekend, 49ers Colts. Like a more entertaining game than I was expecting, but in a different way. This was a high scoring game, one of the highest scoring games of the weekend. I think it was the highest scoring game. It was actually no. Correct me, I'm wrong. It was tied with the Rams Seahawks for that high scoring game. 75 total points. Niners scored 48 points in this game against a defense that I thought was pretty good, but they're probably checked out because the offense is checked out because Phillip Rivers is at quarterback. Brock Purdy played the best game of his career. I don't care. His PFF grade was 96.6, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. The 1 interception does deserve to be held against him, but like if you take away that throw, like he played perfect in this game. He was 25 of 34, adjusted completion percentage of 81.8, and averaged at the target of 10.6. Anytime he threw the ball past the sticks, it seemed like it was money. Good on Brock Purdy. Good on San Francisco. They're now somehow in control for the 1 seed. If they win their final 2 games, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC somehow. They've been quietly one of the better, like 11-4 teams you'll see in the NFL. They've been injured. No Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner. Brandon Ayuk is doing whatever Brandon Ayuk does. So I don't think this is a Super Bowl team, but if they get the 1 seed, Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. I don't care what reputation he has. San Francisco's going to be dangerous. I don't think they're the best team, but they might end up being the 1 seed just because they happen to win enough games and they just kept on chugging. So good on them. Indianapolis, they're cooked. The Sauce Gardner trade looks horrendous in hindsight. I don't believe the picks they traded to the Jets for Gardner are protected. So, woof. They might be giving away a top 13 pick for a cornerback. Ooh. Phillip Rivers started out pretty well in this game. He had a nice touchdown to Alec Pierce on the opening drive, but overall did not play well in this game. For some reason, even though he's 44 years old, had an average at the target of 10.4, and he was weirdly effective throwing down the field. Like 2 of 5 with 2 big-time throws is actually pretty good. But again, this Colts team is finished. San Francisco is in the playoffs. They might end up being the 1 seed, maybe the most underwhelming number 1 seed ever, or most under the radar number 1 seed ever, but good on them. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I had to race through this because I have a holiday party to get to. So as soon as I turn this off, I will be going up and partying and celebrating Christmas. We are going to be recording our preview episode for the upcoming week later tonight, but I had to ride solo. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday season.